Ukraine has made energy its target of choice, hitting refineries, depots, pipelines with drones and missiles almost on a daily basis. And the goal is quite clear. Ukraine wants to bleed the Kremlin's war chest dry.
The night sky over Moscow isn't quiet anymore. For hours, engines buzzed above the capital, breaking through the darkness. It wasn't commercial flights or rescue helicopters, it was wave after wave of Ukrainian drones cutting across the city's defenses. At first, they came in twos and threes, then dozens, then a swarm so large that radar operators struggled to separate real threats from background clutter. By the time morning arrived on September 23rd, the city's mayor was forced to admit the obvious. Moscow had been under attack all night. Air defenses lit up the sky, interceptor missiles arced overhead, and automatic cannons spat fire at targets the size of birds. The official tally, 34 drones destroyed on their way to Moscow. But according to Russia's own defense ministry, the total number of downed drones across 9 regions, stretching from occupied Crimea to Moscow Oblast, was 69. The capital's airspace had to be closed. Civilian flights were rerouted, delayed, or temporarily suspended. Passengers stranded in Sheremetyevo, Domodedovo, and Vnukovo airports sat restless as security warnings echoed overhead. Emergency services rolled out to neighborhoods where burning wreckage had fallen. No casualties, Moscow said. No major damage either. But in several districts, explosions shook windows, and local residents claimed drones were intercepted directly above apartment blocks.
Friends and I rented an apartment to come here and unwind, and at some point we heard an explosion and it was like a wave. Everyone jumped.
For ordinary Muscovites, the night was a reminder that the war wasn't far away anymore. It was here. While Russian officials reassured citizens that everything was under control, Ukrainian forces were working on something far bigger. Behind the drone strikes on Moscow was a coordinated campaign. Hundreds of miles away, Ukrainian intelligence had zeroed in on 2 key targets: a drone logistics hub in Donetsk region and a regimental ammunition depot in Luhansk. For weeks, Russian trucks had been funneling supplies to these depots. Boxes of grenades, crates of cartridges, tank shells, artillery rounds, and mines. Alongside them came a staggering number of unmanned aerial vehicles, 19,000 of them, destined for the occupation army. Each shipment was logged, distributed, and staged for attacks on Ukrainian cities. The depots weren't just storage sites. They were arteries feeding Russia's entire drone war. On the evening of September 22nd, Ukrainian strikes ripped through both locations. Fireballs lit the horizon as secondary explosions echoed for hours. Ammunition trucks parked nearby turned into burning wrecks. Soldiers scrambled to contain the blaze, but the more they tried, the more detonations thundered. By the next morning, the depots had ceased to exist. The general staff in Kiev described it bluntly: coordinated precision, perfect cooperation between those who locate and those who strike. And this wasn't Ukraine's first large-scale drone breakthrough. Just months earlier, Kiev's security service had carried out Operation Spiderweb, a deep strike that sent more than 100 drones into Russia itself. Hidden inside trucks and guided with AI navigation, they reached air bases once thought untouchable, damaging strategic bombers and exposing cracks in Russia's long-range defenses. That mission proved that if Moscow could be reached once, it could be reached again, and the September 23rd swarm was the latest reminder. Ukraine followed that with a series of steady blows closer to the front. On August 29th, its forces targeted a distribution hub for Russian drones in Dnipro, wiping out massive stockpiles of UAVs in minutes. Less than 3 weeks later, on September 18th, Ukrainian units working alongside the security service of Ukraine flattened a regimental ammunition depot in occupied Luhansk. Thousands of tank rounds, shells, and cartridges went up in fire and smoke. Each strike made the next one easier. Each blow weakened Russia's supply chain further. So while Moscow's air defenses were busy swatting drones above the capital, its forces in the occupied east were bleeding critical equipment. Inside Russia, the political fallout was just as explosive. Vladimir Putin began purging generals he blamed for failures at the front. The most high-profile casualty, Colonel General Alexander Lapin. Once entrusted with defending Russia's borders, Lapin's career ended not with promotion, but with exile. In late September, state-aligned media confirmed what many had suspected. Lapin was dismissed and sent to Tatarstan, stripped of real power. His new role was ceremonial at best, assisting veterans' families, organizing recruitment drives, escorting parades. For a man who once commanded entire military districts, the demotion was humiliating. Lapin's downfall was tied to one of the Kremlin's deepest wounds, the Kursk region. In 2022, Lapin had overseen Russia's central military district. Under his watch, Russian forces were driven out of Kharkiv in a lightning counteroffensive by Ukraine. Entire battalions collapsed, equipment was abandoned, and thousands of square kilometers were retaken in days. It was one of Russia's most embarrassing defeats of the war, yet the Kremlin gave Lapin another chance. In 2024, he was tasked with defending the Kursk region. This time, the situation unraveled even worse. Ukrainian forces punched through Russia's defensive lines, overwhelming local units with numerical superiority and momentum. Villages fell, then towns, until 74 settlements were under Ukrainian control. By the time Russia clawed back territory in April 2025, the damage was already done. Putin had been forced to turn to North Korea, begging Kim Jong-un for reinforcements. Russian prestige took another hit, and so did Lapin's career. In Moscow, his dismissal was framed as routine, but the timing was clear. The general had become the face of defeat. The man blamed for losing Kursk just as he had once lost Lyman. Newspapers pointed out the uncomfortable parallels between the 2022 Kharkiv retreat and the Kursk collapse of 2024. Both exposed how brittle Russia's army really was when pushed. Both revealed the cost of nepotism and corruption inside the Ministry of Defense. By removing Lapin, Putin signaled that someone would pay for failure. But replacing one general won't solve Russia's deeper problems. Back in Ukraine, drone operators watched their screens as missions unfolded. Each UAV that pierced Russian airspace forced the enemy to react. Radar systems activated, interceptors launched, and airports shut down. Even when drones were shot down, the disruption was real. Each one stretched Russia's defenses thinner, forced them to spend more money, more ammunition, more time. And for every drone that fell, another target on the ground was burning. The ammunition depot in Luhansk, the distribution hub in Donetsk, convoys loaded with weapons that never reached the front. Firefighters in occupied towns battled infernos that had been ignited hours before. The message was unmistakable. Russia's rear was no longer safe. By morning, Moscow claimed victory. Dozens of drones downed, airports reopened, life returning to normal. But beneath the surface, anxiety simmered. Residents knew explosions had echoed across 9 districts. Social media carried videos of burning wreckage near apartment buildings. Families whispered about the strange new sound in the night sky, and the strikes didn't happen in isolation. They came at the same moment as political purges, battlefield losses, and devastating ammunition strikes. Every wave of Ukrainian drones was more than a nuisance. It was proof that the war had breached Russia's capital, its borders, and its confidence. The story isn't finished. New waves of drones will fly, new depots will burn, and new generals will fall. Each strike is another reminder that Ukraine's fight isn't only at the front line. It reaches deep into Russian territory, undermining logistics, sowing panic, and proving that no distance is safe. The night of September 23rd was just one chapter in that story. Moscow's sky was filled with the hum of engines, the glare of interceptor fire, and the growing realization that even the heart of Russia can be reached. Glory to Ukraine. And if you want to keep following these unfolding events, stories that go beyond the headlines, into the details that change wars, make sure to subscribe. Every week we bring you deeper insights into the battles shaping the world. Don't miss what comes next.